The light breaks. It's the sun making its slow and measured approach above the horizon. Like many of us, emerging beyond the white curtain. We sing, like Langston Hughes once wrote in the singular, I too sing America. We play without the masks that Dunbar scripted so long ago. And we compose the music that must be, is being heard with ears that would not hear before. We are departing the kitchen of the darker brother. This is the tomorrow, and the table is set. Welcome to Classical Music in Color. I'm Judlin Gibson. Thank you for tuning in to the March 18th, 2022 edition of Classical Music in Color. We're talking with composer Adolphous Hailstork about the premiere of his latest work, dedicated to George Floyd. We'll also be heading to South Bend for an upcoming DEI symposium and to New York for performances honoring women composers. Early Music America is doling out some cash, and string players better hurry to apply for a new musician fellowship program offered by the Virginia Symphony Orchestra. That's Wake Up My Spirit, performed by the Luther College Collegiate Chorale in Decorah, Iowa. The music composed by my guest, Adolphous Hailstork. That's just one of the hundreds of tunes he's composed over his 80 years. Now he's preparing for the premiere of his latest work, Requiem Cantata, in memory of George Floyd, A Knee on the Neck. The National Philharmonic in the D.C. area is performing the piece along with a chorus. Clearly, we were all moved by what happened and angered by what happened to George Floyd. You expressed that in music. How did you come to that?
Well, my librettist friend sent me a libretto, actually, within a week of the murder, and I asked him if he wanted me to set that, because usually when he sends me a text, he does want that, and he said, yes, please, and so I immediately started working on it. His name is Dr. Herbert Martin, and he's a retired professor from the Dayton University in Ohio.
So you then read what he wrote, and music came to you?
Yeah, it's kind of a natural process, you know.
Did you have the National Philharmonic already going to produce it, or rather perform it?
I never even heard of that orchestra, but the conductor called me and said that he'd be very interested in. He sees it as an opportunity because obviously, just with your calling, proves that it's gotten national attention, and so it will. He asked if he could do it. He has a choir attached to his orchestra, and he has a good orchestra. And I said, fine. I had no other options at that time.
How did the music come to you? Was it through pain, anger, all of those things?
More anger than anything. Yeah, that's the one of my driving motives, and a lot of my socially oriented pieces that I write is determination to honor African American people and to pay homage to their triumphs and their tragedies. And this certainly was one of the tragedies.
You, sir, are prolific in your compositions. For orchestra, chorus, you have something, solo instruments, you have something for everyone who wants to play your music. Have you had difficulty in getting any of it performed?
There are some pieces that I'm still waiting to have performed, but you know, it comes and goes. Sometimes there are opportunities that kind of blossom more than at other times. You know, difficulty is the word I'm getting hung up on. Um, I don't struggle that much to get things performed. I do let people know that pieces exist and that I really would like to hear them, but the power for that event to happen is clearly in the hands of the artistic administrators and the conductors. So just have to wait sometimes.
Black classical composers have been waiting and waiting and waiting for some of those administrators and music directors to hear them and play their music. Now it seems composers like Florence Price and Margaret Bond are, if not at the top of the list, or at least on the list of considerations.
I never, during my teen years and until just recently, had they were just vaguely brought to mind, and now they're hot. And I'm so glad that I'm getting hot without being dead. And so they're gone, but it's about time. All I can say, it's about time. Not only just for African Americans, but for women too.
How do you feel about, because you're 80, right? So how do you feel about finally getting some play, finally?
Well, I can't say it's finally for me. I probably have had the most continuous uh, career of any African American composer. I have been played somewhere every year. Sometimes it's when I came along, at least in my starting to shortly after my doctorate and all of that, it was the concerts were usually ghettoized, and the fact even black conductors call them ghetto concerts. You would get played in February and in January, and I frequently get the question after the first question is always, "Oh, you're a composer. You write jazz, gospel, et cetera, et cetera." And I said, "No, I write classical." And then it's usually January and February that I get played, and people would ask, reporters, interviewers would say, "Does that bother you?" And I say, No. I consider January and February as showcase months, and it would only bother me if those were the only months in which I got played, and they aren't. Throughout my career, I've been played in January and February, but also and other times of the year, and so that was satisfying to me.
So what's next after this performance with the George Floyd piece?
Well, I was supposed to get my fourth symphony premiered in February, but that just got canceled until next year, postponed to next year, and I'm getting the first movement of my fifth symphony done in April. It's a piece for the Boston Conservatory. And then I've got some smaller pieces being done later on in the spring. I'm doing a piece for the Colorado Music Festival. Is going to be a setting of some Frost poems, plus interspersed with that readings from the last official
the last official speech.
He gave it at Amherst College. I'm doing a piano concerto for a woman named Lara Downs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know Lara?
Yeah, I don't
She
know
does.
her. I know
She
of
has
her.
a program. Okay, right. I've got another piano concerto coming up a year after that. Jeffrey Beagle. I was just doing some touch-ups on a viola piece. A person in Texas asked for. He's at TCU, and he wanted something to commemorate the Montgomery bus boycott. So he wanted for solo viola with a dancer. So I'm working on that. So those are some of the things going on.
Are you happy about what's happened with your career, this long, wonderful, illustrious career that you've had?
Well, it's certainly been long, and as long as I've enjoyed writing music, it's been wonderful. I don't know about the illustrious part. That's up to people like you who have shows. Anyway.
Mr. Hailstork, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with me.
Sure.
And I'm honored to be talking to you.
Well, thank you.
I also told Mr. Hailstork that when talking to composers, I like to play at least one of their pieces in full. He chose An American Port of Call. An American Port of Call was composed for the Virginia Symphony. They premiered it in 1985. Hailstork says he was inspired by the energy of what he calls the great port of Norfolk, Virginia, where he lives. The Adolphous Hailstork composition Requiem Cantata in memory of George Floyd, A Knee on the Neck, with text by Herbert Martin, premieres March 26th at the Music Center at Strathmore in Bethesda, Maryland. Special guest artists include Andy Marie Moore, Norman Schenkel, and Kenneth Overton. Coming up next, honoring women composers and a book club symposium about the lack of diversity in orchestral repertoire. Here are a few events of interest that are either online and or live. First up, the South Bend Symphony. This Indiana orchestral group has joined with the St. Joseph Public Library to host a 3-week book club symposium. It's about the lack of diversity in orchestral repertoire. As reference, they'll be talking about Dvorak's Prophecy and The Vexed Fate of Black Classical Music, both by Joseph Horowitz. The conversation will be led by Martin Curtis, chair of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee of the South Bend Symphony Orchestra. They've already had one discussion, with 2 more scheduled on March 23rd and on the 30th. The events will be live-streamed. The Harlem Chamber Players honor women composers this month, Women's History Month. They're presenting Women of the Movements with music composed by Florence Price, Nkiro Okoye, Beata Moon, and Tanya Leon. That's on March 31st. And don't forget about the concert version of the Emmett Till Opera. It'll be on March 23rd and 24th. Both performances will be at various venues in New York City. Links to all are on the Classical Music and Color page on secondstreetdreams.com. There are a couple of fellowships and financial awards available. Hear about those next. If you are a young African-American violinist, violist, cellist, or bassist, this announcement may be for you. Hurry to apply for this. The Virginia Symphony Orchestra has a new musician fellowship program. It's for 4 early career African-American orchestral string musicians. Fellows will receive 9 university-level course credits from Old Dominion University in Norfolk, and they'll receive a stipend. You'll even get housing with a local host family and other benefits. Here's the problem, or not. The deadline to apply is March 21st. That's right, March 21st. Early Music America is doling out some cash, real cash. They're offering up to $1,500 to organizations, members of EMA, to support projects for children and or adults by organizations, ensembles, and individual artists. The awards are intended to promote awareness and appreciation of early music and historical performance, with the goal of drawing new audiences and participants to early music. Early Music America is also offering a small number of scholarships to currently enrolled students to support attendance at early music workshops in North America. Deadlines for both are April 4th. Once again, look for the links on the Classical Music and Color page at secondstreetdreams.com. We've reached the end of our program, our coda. I'm taking a bit of a vacation, so the next episode of Classical Music in Color will be posted on April 8th. It will feature an interview with the man everyone is talking about, Brendan Slocum. He's the first-time author of the book that has taken classical music fans and so many others by the strings, The Violin Conspiracy. A big thank you to the classical music organizations who are making the effort to add more chairs to the table and color outside the lines to bring other voices into their administrations and on their stages. Stay safe, stay healthy like your life depends on it, because you know it does. We are the Second Street Dreams Audio Network on the radio and on the Triple W. Thank you for listening to the March 18th, 2022 edition of Classical Music in Color. I'm Judelin Gibson.